Kia ora mai tātou. I tuaki nei I rungi te kaupapa o te rā, mō tēnei huihuinga o te kaunihira, me te rōpū mana whenua partnership o Tauranga Moana. Nō reira, mō te timatanga o tēnei hui o te ata nei, ino tātou, let us pray. E pā e tō mātou matunu te rangi ki e tapu tōingo. E pā e whakawheta ana mātou ki a koe mō tēnei wā. Mō tō aroha, tō manakitanga ki a mātou ka hui mai I tēnei rā I rungi te kaupapa nei. Arahi tia mātou e koe, I roto e nei mahi. Ko ihu karaiti tō mātou kai whakaora, ake, tonu ake, āmene. Kia ora mai tātou.
Knowing that many of them are the ones that have paved the way for us to be here today, and that it's in our hands perhaps to fulfill some of the dreams, aspirations, and hopes that they had that they weren't able to fulfill during their time with us. Lord, we again continue to say farewell, farewell, farewell. But more importantly, we come back to us the living. Hope we're all alive and well this morning and enjoying this new day that we've been given, and look forward to a nice, robust communication session with each other, and that we can deal with the business of the day, and then follow up with other business I'm sure that we're all busy with. So again, to each and every one of you, acknowledge the Mayor as our leader here today, and we say again to each one, welcome, welcome, greetings, greetings, thank you.
Have you any apologies? Steve Morris, any further apologies? Pardon? No further apologies? Somebody move, somebody second that? Be accepted? Okay, we're going to move into the public forum. We've got with us this morning Mrs. Rangi Maori Housing to present on the Treaty of Waitangi claims. She's been given 10 minutes. So, thank you. Welcome to the forum.
Tēnā koutou katoa. As per previous huis here, I've introduced myself that I'm Langi Māori e te Amopiu Ka Kingi, and I am a great-great-granddaughter of the first Māori king, Tāwhio po Tātou te Whirowhiro, and that in my marae that affiliates directly is Tikanga o Tāwhio Marae and Ngātira. I'm here today to talk about the Treaty of Waitangi claim settlements that I'm involved with. I'm putting in claims to drive the individual process, as we can see that the group claims have been underway through these Māori Trust Boards, and it's time to review the Māori Trust Boards. It's time, as per my map I've got up there on the board. It's not very clear, but you can see these maps there in the Tauranga library that were presented for the Waitangi settlements claim here. The Treaty of Waitangi claims are not true closure. Treaty of Waitangi settlement process of submitting claims to Wellington Parliament based on the 1975 Treaty of Waitangi Legislation Act instead of the 1840 Te Tiriti o Waitangi contract, which was originally signed. This is evidence once again that the Crown is controlling amounts of wealth, amounts of resources and lands that they will never return to our Māori people through the group's process of the Māori Land Court. So it's time now to also review what our Māori Land Trusts have done for us personally, and when we can see our people who are homeless, who have been uplifted from their land areas and being shifted around right now. I've also presented to you the copy of the WINS. We'll go through that. If you could shift that down, that would be great. Good, thanks. Well, it's a pie graph of the number of those on the WINS MSD benefits, and these are where the true Māori landowners are. The true Māori landowners are trapped under the depopulation planning of the government's MSD office. Low incomes, they are trapped strictly between low income jobs, they are also trapped and forced to go overseas against the competition of the incoming wave of the consequence of immigration for the workforce here that is strictly put in place purposely to work against my Māori people, our Māori people, and I represent Pōharatanga because the other marae is Pōhara. Marae is part of the kingitanga too of Princess Tapuia and Tāwhio, and the compassion that we had for our people and we have for our people should remain. So these Treaty of Waitangi settlements that are shifting mass amounts of wealth into bank accounts is not a true closure. This is evidence against the Central North Island trusts, shifting these mass amounts of treasury wealth as a handshake partnership timed with the 2015, the TPPA Te Ture Whenua Act, a Crown Act which led to the mass confiscation of our people being written off by the Wellington Treasury. So what's happened since this TPPA was signed and we saw the mass spark protests against this partnership to welcome the wave of immigrants that we currently are suffering from now in Tauranga and Auckland, overpopulating Auckland so that they have to send all their people down to this area to be housed. So this was instructed and we continue under this consequence of this depopulation plan, which was directly instigated through the National Party, Paula Bennett, Ann Tolley, Bill English, and led by John Key at the time. Now this work is being carried on by the Labour administration of Jacinda Ardern and Andrew Little, with Calvin Davis, Nanaia Mahuta, who is part of this Tuheitia Paki group, and also through these settlements what it's actually bringing out too is a failure of duty of care from this person claiming to be sitting in the King's Line and helping our people out more. The Maori Land Court Trusts have failed to retain our lands for Maori use and expansion plans. The Maori Land Court Trusts have failed to preserve our customary laws to guard and govern the protection of those lands to remain in Maori ownership. Therefore, the Maori Land Court Trusts have failed to protect our resources and our people, and the Maori Land Court Trust failed to provide adequate housing for Māori and adequate food provisions for Māori. Instead, these groups have continued to sit around the council's local tables to support the Crown's expansion plans here in Tauranga and in the Bay of Plenty Central North Island, including Rotorua and surrounding areas. They continue to support the Crown's housing and business developments, and instead they claim to sit in offices as mana whenua, as a tribal chiefly status, and they claim to have allowed Wellington political parties, Labour and National, to hijack our trusts. These trusts, our maraes, and to hold the full media speaking rights on our behalf. So what we're seeing through our Māori media television and through the media TV is the hijacking of our speaking rights being lost to strictly be given to Wellington politicians such as Nanaia Mahuta, who has completely failed to help our people, and she needs to be removed and step down from that position in Wellington. Instead, you have failed to guard our tapu whakapapa, allowing other bloodlines in, such as Pacific bloodlines, to replace our Māori. And this is what's happening when we go to our maraes. It's not, the paipai has been corrupted for some time, and so it's time for the true treaty settlement claims, for the individual claims process to advance our people. It's all about compassion. As I've said, you missed our meeting the other night that we had for the mayoral candidates meeting, and it was an interesting night. It wasn't an expected night what we saw, but it happened. And it's just time for a change, and I'm just bringing some information.
I just want to intervene. You have 2 minutes, 44
2 minutes ago.
seconds left. So I just wanted to know if you can explain exactly why you brought this to the table here, because a lot of the things that you shared there actually should be dealt with by the iwi. So what are you expecting from the council?
Well, the reason why I'm presenting it to the Tangata Whenua group is because of who you claim to represent and who you claim to be at the local council, and your position as claiming to be mana whenua here, while our people are homeless and our people are unhoused and we should be looking after our own affairs.
Well, I think
that's what it is. This is about putting this group and you people on the spot about what's the purpose of tangata whenua hui's at the councils, or are you just, as I've mentioned, just supporting all the councils and the Crown's advancements instead of Maori housing here?
I think if you look back over the history, you'll see that the relationship between the Tangata Whenua Collective, it's now called the Tauranga Mōna Mana Whenua Partnership, have made good advances, and every person sitting at this table here in this forum has been mandated by their hapu, which are part of the 3 iwi of Tauranga Mōna plus Waitaha Hei. So we probably challenge that statement, but that's not to be had here today because you're running out of time.
This is exactly the place to have this say, because it needs to be brought out into the public more. It needs to be opened up to the media more about who Ngāti Ranginui, even on the maps now and the surveyed maps of history, who Ngāti Ranginui actually is here, because Raukawa and Te Arawa were definitely the strong ties to Tauranga Moana. And who Ngāti Whakaue claims to be. No, it needs to be here. Tainui, who these Central North Island Trust Boards claim to be, is incorrect. And so they could be deregistered. That's what I'm saying about the future of the Maori Land Court. We're at the end of an era. We've had 40 years of you men, and we can see it around this table, male-dominated dictators having too much say, and we need to do something about that. But I'm going to finish right there. I've presented the information. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa kahuri.
Well, kia ora, I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for making the presentation, coming here and telling us dominated male, us Maori males that are sitting at the table here, but and also I want to wish you well in your campaign that's coming up, and be good to see how the end results come out. But again, kia kaha, kia mai, kia manawa nui. Thank you very much. Just do is that's to welcome a new staff member here, a lady called Mrs. Susan Jamieson, General Manager, People and Engagement. So we want to say to you, hara mai, no mai, tēnā koe. So we look forward to being able to work with you. Obviously you've been through a grilling from the CEO that you've got this high-powered position. I hope it's not like Mr. Hisco, is it, or Hisco and ANZ Bank, and so we know that they only got Suzuki's here, so you won't be able to get a chauffeur-driven limo. But we look forward to being able to support you in whatever way we can as the mana moana, and it's all about relationship building, about communicating, and understand that we do have cultural differences at times that might clash with some of the policies that happen here. So talking about people engagement, that looks like it's going to be right up your alley, sorting out these councillors for us. So we want to thank you very much for that in advance. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So that's basically my chairman's report. Thank you very much. Any late items?
The chair, if I may. Whether it's a late item or a discussion, there's certainly something I would like to bring up, put on the table for discussion at this meeting. It doesn't necessarily formally fit the criteria for a late item, but with your indulgence, I'd certainly like to have that discussion. Recently, when I went to the regional council in the Waikato, up on a wall in a significant place, they had a copy of the original treaty that was partially destroyed, and they had that on the wall. And to me, that was quite powerful in that it sort of recognised the treaty. It recognised in some ways the difficult times that we've had, with the treaty being partially burnt or partially destroyed. But 90% of it is still there, whether you would feel the same way. But that's just a discussion that I'd like to have, or start that discussion here at this meeting with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, and my approach, a long-term aim would be to have that placed in a very large copy on the wall there, which would signify, our relationship and our commitment to that relationship. So it's a discussion I'd like to have with your indulgence.
Certainly. So is that your introduction? You want to carry on, or should we ask questions?
No, well, I wasn't. We can carry on at the moment. I wasn't planning to, but I would like to have that discussion around this table. Around this council approving that we do put that or something similar to that on our wall there to signify our commitment to that relationship, our commitment to the treaty. I also feel that it indicates our understanding of the difficult times that especially the Tangata Whenua have had with regard to the treaty and our commitment moving forward. So I'll put that on the table, and I would very much like to see our council do that.
Okay, thanks, Terry. I think it's a good discussion to have, and as you've heard from the previous speaker, that she's challenged a lot of things that have happened that's come out of the treaty. So I'm just wondering if this is going to be an in-house decision made, or do we have to send it out to public consultation?
I'd hope we'd have the courage to just do that as a yep. Well, not today, but we have that discussion here. But it'll have to be progress from here. But
Kia ora, Mr. Chair, and through you. This is something which has come to us today, which has not been notified to us at all before. However, upon hearing what Councillor Malloy has now presented, personally, we obviously haven't discussed it through the Mana Whenua partnership, but my personal view is that it's such a significant part of our history, and I am aware of this this copy, well, this original, and it's probably the only one of its kind that exists. I do believe that there are other bits there, that there has been some documentation relating to explanations of parts of it, because it is quite hard to read, and the signatures and the wording, etc. And somewhere in the past, someone has documented sections of it to give interpretations, whatever. And I'm not suggesting that you fill the wall up with everything, but alongside with this sort of main display, if you like, that there be something to support it which is available for people to have a read of, to look at, either either in its hard form or electronically, that they can hook into. And so at this stage, I feel that it is because of its importance and because it's such an historical document, that it does warrant such an important place, especially from the fact that we have this partnership relationship. We've had it now for 18 years, 17 years, and it would be very significant in terms of recognising and acknowledging our relationship, which at the end of the day starts with the tiriti, or Waitangi. So that's my opening kōrero. Kia ora.
Morena koutou. Tēnā koe, Terry, tō kōrero ki te hāpaitanga ki te tiriti o Waitangi. Thank you, Terry, for bringing this to the floor. I think it does not need that discussion in regards, although I support our chair, is that this is acknowledging exactly what our partnership is about. I think the whakaahua, the picture, does also tell us about the journey, but also the journey that we take. It is that full acknowledgement that the partnership, participation and the protection that we actually stand for. I think it's a brave and a courageous kōrero, and I welcome that and totally support that as a member of the Mana Whenua ki Tauranga Moana. I also like the discussion that's on the floor that opens again to acknowledge what we're doing here today, but also the kōrero of the previous speaker of Rangi Māori. Of course, there are many levels that we're working at in regards to the tiriti. And it's understanding those levels and those acknowledgement to those that are working to actually look at what that battle has been over the journey of time, but also where we have come from and where we are at now and further to journey. This is work in progress. And I just want to acknowledge that, and thank you, Terry, for your kōrero to the floor. Kia ora.
Yeah, I actually think it's a brilliant idea. Thank you for bringing it up. Just to support it, and just to remind everybody that it is recognised as the founding document of New Zealand. So, kia ora.
Yes, that's where things go wrong, is because there's not understanding and knowing the history of the treaty. The treaty is a founding document of this nation. There's no two ways about that. if you understood the three articles of the treaty. And there's partly self-determination in terms of a way of transliterating a policy from a Maori values point of view. That's actually in there. Now today we're actually finding out the importance of that treaty, and we're going to find it out that it's going to be more important in future when we get when the immigration system takes over this country. We will be looking around for the treaty, because we would have more foreign policies that would be invading this land without, and then suddenly the treaty will become important, the three articles of the treaty, if we understood what the treaty is. There's an example of that when the CNI forest was being sold off to the Whenua and that lot. They were selling off the CNI forest. The New Zealand Maori Council took them to court based on the treaty, and that stopped their sales of the forest to foreign ownership right in its tracks. And there's if you understand the RMA is actually transliterated from parts in the treaty. Palmer did a good job of that, and of course he was a renowned, one of the best lawyers in the country. And that's even the Local Government Act, Section 104 of the Local Government Act, in terms of, so all these acts are being transliterated, but it's for us to have a better understanding of the treaty and how they are transliterated into how we run the country today. 28th Maori Battalion was paid the ultimate price of citizenship, and the treaty was part of that.
Thank you, Terry, for bringing that up. I'd just like to say that. I would also like to have this discussion around the part the treaty played here in Tauranga and how it was signed.
Yeah.
So just think about that. There was people here that signed. Not everybody signed, bro, but there was some here that signed. So if you're going to display, might as well display something that says here.
Kia ora, Terry, for raising this. I mean, it shouldn't be a courageous decision. It should be a fairly straightforward decision, because this is a key part of, obviously, of our history. I'd like to see that, placed on the wall. I also agree with Penny about the context of the local Tauranga area as well being included in that. So yeah, I think some interpretive aspects of it to accompany it would be fantastic. I've got one little question, whether it should be the Maori version or the English version, because I know there's some so I'm just saying we just need to make sure that that is agreed to. Thank you.
Thank you for that input. Any further questions? Comments? Accepted.
Thank you, through the chair. Terry, thank you very much. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I've always said a picture's worth 1,000 words, and to capture and see something like that on the wall is going to bring attention to many. But in this case, I think 1,000 words need to be added, and when I say that, is some description, a little bit about what that means. And further to that, as Maru mentioned, is that we're still in the process of the tribunal, and there could be decisions made to add to that. But that could be part of that description, and I think that's a bit of a plus. So that's just my suggestion. I'm very, very supportive of it, and just thought I'd throw that comment in.
You. I suppose for me, when I look at that, if we put it up on the wall there, this is just a fragment of the original treaty. So it's symbolic in a sense of the fragmentation that's happened since the signing of that treaty. The ink was hardly dried on that treaty when we started to fragment because promises weren't kept. So, there's two sides of the story, but this is all about reconciling, reconciliation. So, these treaty settlements are supposed to be part of that reconciliation. While it's only we might call a pittance, and others out there saying that all those greedy Maoris are getting too much. 1% of what you should really get is not a lot. So, you know, when we look at that, we can see, well, we do need to have it up there in terms of saying, well, this is what it was, this is what it was intention was, but this is what it ended up being. And so we have this issues in our moana today, like every other place that have this challenge. And how do we bring ourselves together so that we can say, okay, let's honour the treaty? Even though it was Hobson that said he probably didn't understand what he said when he iwi ko tahi tata. Well, today we have a better understanding of how we might make that happen. Okay, Councillor Granger.
Look, just thinking, should we take it just one step further from our suggestion to the council? So that then it comes to a full council meeting for us to discuss. I'm just looking for the next step. We can discuss it now, that's great. But I'm just looking for that extra step to take, and I think that would be a good idea. Just a suggestion.
Out the council have policies and processes that they'll have to push it through before it goes any further. Well, I'm not saying that outside, but I'm talking about within the council itself, their own policies and processes to make a decision.
Yeah, I just thought I'd mention that the treaty that came to Tauranga was signed in April somewhere, and I think that version should be up here alongside maybe that one there, but the one with the Tauranga signatories should be the one that was brought in.
Yeah, I think it's a very good suggestion. Thank you, Councillor Malloy. I attended a gathering over in Pilot Bay a year or two ago where a group commemorated the signing there on the beach. Obviously, it went in other places. So having the local flavour would be really good. I support that. Given our circumstances here, it is a good thing to go forward with. It's nearly 20 years to the 200th anniversary of the signing. I hope by then that the council might be sitting in a new chamber and it may be incorporated into the design of that new chamber. I hope it's built by 2040. I think the Chief Executive shares that hope as well. It would be fabulous to see it incorporated in the original or in the early designs of a new chamber for the city.
Kia ora, thank you, Mr. Chair. To further progress this, I would like to suggest, therefore, that if it's okay, allowable, that this committee makes a recommendation to go to council, full council, in terms of presenting a proposal or presenting a report which sets out exactly what this committee would like to propose to the full council. We can work on that until the time comes, and that we move forward in that line. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou. I don't believe it needs to go to council, but perhaps Councillor Malloy, and I think it's a good suggestion, perhaps Councillor Malloy might consider gifting this to the chamber as a legacy. I think that could be a nice idea. So, yeah.
Councillor Stewart, you're not seeing into the future there, are you, in any way?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment, actually. Last September, the Mayor, the Chief Executive, Councillor Stewart, and I went to Gisborne, and in their new library, they have the treaty inscribed on the glass walls on the way in, and it made a huge impact. And I just think maybe just a sign within the chambers where only 20 people come a week is probably not quite the right place, that we could look at somewhere with a higher public profile and have higher meaning.
Kia ora noa. Just to pick up on the point of Catherine, I don't think it should, well, I'd like to think that we're not going through the bureaucratic process, and I quite like the suggestion that if that comes as a gift from wherever that may be, but I also, sitting here as mana whenua, is the kōrero that's happening in regards to the treaty that was signed here. And maybe that's the partnership that, one, this treaty comes forward, and also the koha that comes and sits alongside it from mana whenua in regards to the treaty that was signed here. Maybe that in itself also not only portrays or pictures that, but actually the action that takes place and how that happens. So, ka pai.
Morena koutou. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I was involved in the design for the Te Papa Museum, where a central part of the display was the glass treaty, which is exhibited there. So I think the suggestion by Councillor Malloy is very welcome. I would suggest, as Whiti has, that we should have the Tauranga version of the treaty, the one that was brought here by is it Major Bunbury? Major Bunbury, and then taken around the rest of the Bay of Plenty. That should be the one that's displayed here, mainly because my ancestor's got a signature on it. It looks like a cross, but you know, I know it's him. Anyway, no, excellent suggestion, and I support that wholeheartedly. Kia ora.
Okay, Kawa, thank you.
Kia ora no tātou. Yeah, great suggestion, Councillor Malloy, and great to see the support around the table. I just wondered, just connecting a couple of things on the agenda, whether it would be good to tie in, if you are in agreement for this to happen, to tie it in with part of the additional report Puhiraki's put forward around induction and connection. I think there's an opportunity with going forward to keep building on the understanding. And for example, we're hearing a lot of kōrero around how the treaty was signed here in Tauranga. You know, maybe this could all be blended into a way forward there, and that it might coincide whether it's before or during the suggested induction between mana whenua and the new councillors as a group, meaning they may not be new people, but the group will be new post-election. Just a suggestion.
Mr. Chairman, there could be a misconception in terms about the signing of the treaty, because what actually happened as to why those chiefs up north signed the treaty, they were only given 7 days. So Governor Hobson actually wanted signatures. As a consequence, they signed the treaty, and then the treaty was taken around the country. But the principles of the treaty are the same all around. It was just a matter that Governor Hobson was in haste, and of course there's that famous saying, "How do you do, Mr. Governor?" And of course that's what all the Ngāpuhi chiefs at that time said to Governor Hobson when they signed or put their dot on the line. So the treaty is still the same.
Okay, kia ora. I think we heard enough robust discussion about that. So the next step is really to move it to the next stage, whatever that might be, and to get some momentum going. And all the details about what version and who said what and who didn't say what, we can discuss that the next week. But today is about being put on the table. I think we've all accepted it, and so now it's in the hands of those that make it move to the next step. Kia ora tātou.
Make a comment. When you say at the next meeting, this just to remind us that in this year, this is our final formal meeting of the Tangata Whenua Standing Committee for 2019.
correct? I think we haven't done.
So it begs the question as to this will then go forward until 2020, which would then be about February, March, before the next formal meeting is held. Just to raise the question about timing. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thanks, Pui.
Chair, can I make one more comment? With your indulgence?
Last and final comment.
The chamber here, Mr. Chairman, should be and is, I believe, the head, the heart, and the soul of our community. So this is the appropriate place for it to be. Wherever else it goes, this is the appropriate place. Thank you.
Okay, the decision can be made later as well. Kia ora, thank you.
Kia ora. Kia ora for you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry. Kia ora.
Perhaps as a way forward, staff can look at the appropriate treaty document and perhaps get that ready to be put in the chambers. I think all we need is the whakai, the sign-off from this committee to go forward and do that. And as Carlo has said, it will be a part of the induction for the new councillors coming in. I think the decision has been made in this forum, and rightfully so. This is the speaking platform for our governance team, the standing committee here, and the last kōrero we had, it was raised very tentatively, but it was raised. We've had that discussion. I think for staff, we just need to get on and source the appropriate document to be hung in this chamber. So that's from a staff point of view, and I'm saying good on you, councillors and Tangata Whenua reps in here for making that decision.
Thank you, Miradina. Moving on to the next.
So do we need a motion to do that?
What was that?
Yeah. Do we need a motion or action to actually put that up? One saying yes, one saying no. I'm sorry, I'm getting different feedback on the side of me. Yeah. Mr. Chair, can you put us right, please?
So you're getting different feedbacks about which?
Well, some are saying no, some are saying yes.
For what?
What is the action or the motion that we need to do to actually move this forward?
Okay, here's the answer here. You ready? CEO is going to give us a response to that.
Through the chair. Look, we've picked up that there's general support for us displaying the treaty in whatever form we can agree on within the chambers, and we're happy to work through Carlo and his team with the committee, the members of the committee, to ensure that we come up with the appropriate version and display it appropriately within the chambers. I think there doesn't necessarily need to be a resolution. I think we understand what's wanted, and we're happy to work with all parties to ensure that we find their appropriate document to display. And I think that this doesn't need to be a resolution of council either. I think it's just something that is appropriate to display in this type of whare.
Marama? Good, thank you very much.
Just a comment. Through the chair to respond to Marty. Marty, thanks for that comment. I heard the word general. How about we go one step further again and make sure whatever comes from here is full support. And to do that, we could do that with the hands up, and then that way you know then that the full support of the committee is going forward, not just general.
I think that's already been made. Nobody's made anything negative.
say a little bit. Councillor Malloy has obviously gone to the trouble of getting a photo. It would have been nice to be given some sort of advance warning. But if Councillor Malloy or any other outgoing councillors, should they be outgoing, wish to, including myself, wish to contribute towards something that would make things a whole lot easier. I think sometimes we make things very difficult for ourselves, and I'm not making a decision now because that's not the way that it goes. It would be good to get on with the rest of the meeting.
Point taken, Mr. Mayor. So the next item on the agenda is confirmation of minutes. So we've been a little bit remiss in not endorsing the minutes of the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings. 19th of April 2018, 19 April 2018, 21 June 2018, 23 August 2018, 28 February 2019, 18 April 2019. Could we have a mover and a seconder for all those minutes? Moved Councillor Clout, seconded Mr. Puhirake Ihaka. Now I know you all got very good memory, so are there any matters arising?
I may have to abstain because of the failure of my memory.
Abstain. Okay, let it be resolved. Oh, sorry. Didn't see it at the back. You better move forward, I think.
Through
P.
Mr.
Wayne
Chair,
Henry.
could it just please be noted that I attended the 18th of the April 2019 meeting at Haerini, please? Thank you.
You got that? Did you hear that? So we need a... Oh, we've done that. So it's all been resolved, no matters arising. Catherine?
Yeah, through the chair, I've got to follow up once the minutes are approved.
If you want to bring it up now, that's fine.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. The minutes of 21st of June 2018, I undertook to follow up with some more information to bring back to this committee regarding improvements that's to do with stormwater. So may I update the committee?
You may indeed, thank you.
So key projects in 2018-19 were improvements in the CBD. Durham Street landscape upgrade includes a number of rain gardens to improve stormwater discharge to the harbour, improvements in the Mount Industrial catchment, improvements to Waimapu Estuary catchment, addition of floating wetlands to Malimi Street and Courtney Road drains to improve quality of stormwater discharge to Waimapu River and estuary, investigating monitoring to pinpoint sources of contamination from our high priority subcatchments, and trials of gross pollutant traps to prevent rubbish entering the harbour. We've got projects set for the next financial year, which include citywide continue investigative monitoring to highlight sources of contaminant discharges, Mount Industrial catchment, and the subcatchments, Oropi Malimi catchment investigation for new treatment wetland prior to discharge to Waimapu stream, and in the CBD catchment further mitigation measures to improve stormwater discharges to the harbour. At that meeting, some of us may recall that we were talking about concerns regarding sedimentation, runoff, etc. So these are some of the things that have occurred and are planned to in the next financial year. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved by Council.
Just before, can I just...
Sorry.
The eastern area is going through a comprehensive stormwater plan within the next couple of months, I think it is. Will this stormwater plan be integrated into parts of the eastern plan under resource concept, you know, when it goes to regional council?
Through the chair, the council staff would have to answer that question. Perhaps if someone, our committee advisor, could do a follow-up with the stormwater people, that would be, it could be reported back
may help the budget.
Okay, thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Clout, seconded by Mr. Puhirake Ihaka at the Tangata Whenua TCG Committee endorses those minutes to be named, confirms the following minutes to be the Tauranga as true and correct record. All in favour? Anybody against? Carried. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Anybody want to make a declaration of interest? Conflict, sorry. Okay, business. The DC 177 quarterly monitoring report to June 19. Mededina Murray.
Tēnā koutou katoa e homa, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, kia koe rangi Māori, ngā mihi kia koe e te tuahinga. So we have on page 42, the quarterly monitoring report for June 2019. I just thought I would just go over what the report outline what the purpose of the report is, because I know that there are people here that sometimes we just glide through the report quite quickly. So I thought I'd just highlight why we bring this report to this committee, and we've been doing it now for some 17, 18 years. It's a summary of the issues that we provide to this committee to monitor the policy and work in progress on tangata whenua issues. They are mainly generic issues. So when we talk about generic, they are issues that cover the whole of the moana. They're not just specific to one tribe or hapu. So these are the issues that are in this report. That's not to say that at any time the members around this particular forum or committee can raise something or ask about something. So we bring these to you. Staff actually working on these policies, projects, activities, provide the report to myself and to our team when it's due for a formal meeting like so. So we do this basically under the Resource Management Act and also as part of the Local Government Act. So just thought I'd say that to you before we start this report. And please be mindful that staff are not present at these meetings. So if there are any issues that we cannot, and I'm talking about the Takawainga team, cannot answer, we will find out the latest status or anything that is pertaining to that particular activity. So, kei te pai tērā? Is that all good? Yep, cool. So, as I normally do, I just go through each page, and if there are any things on that page that you want to raise or question, please do so. So if we turn to page 45, anything on that page? I just might make a comment about the iwi hapu management plans. The Tauranga Moana iwi management plan, an update of that was provided at a previous meeting, and so
I understand you all got copies of that particular updated Tauranga Moana iwi management plan.
Kia ora Mererina, thank you for that. Just on the iwi hapu management plans, I guess I'm looking at the summary of those who are yet to progress their plans, and on the next page there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, funding is still available. Now, if all 5 came to the council and said we're ready to go at the same time, and the funding is X amount per whatever, then would the total amount of funding be available at one hit, or is there a set annual putia which is available, which then may have to be shared amongst those who apply? I'm just bringing up a hypothetical situation, and wonder if the worst scenario happened, they all came at the same time ready to go, would they be able to progress within their current financial year to complete their plans all at the same time?
At this time, the plans that are yet to be progressed, and you've got them there, the 5 that are there, funding is available for them, and it's been sitting there for a couple of years or so now. So it really is up to those individual hapu and iwi that are named there to basically talk to staff, and our staff, Kieran Paiko, is dealing with these, as well as Karen Marshbanks and a number of others. So at the moment, we're still working with these iwi and hapu. So I'm just unsure of your question. Are you saying that yourselves may be looking at doing something further with your plans?
No. I thought I was quite clear. What I'm saying is that within, say, hypothetically, starting from the 1st of July, there is a new financial year, and all 5 say they want to progress and complete their plans within that 12-month calendar year. Would they realistically be able to do that based on the putia being available for all of them at the same time, if that happened to occur?
Kia ora Pui, yeah, the report's saying the funding's available. It's there. So to be fair, you know, what we balance off is the capability and capacity of each of the hapu. So we are quite patient with people about when they can and can't do it. So we try and be as fair as we can, but we just protect that budget. It is sitting there. Those 5 have funding allocated to those plans, and if they chose to all do them in the next financial year, that would be fantastic.
Just in regards to the iwi hapu management plans, and thank you for this, is there any advancement on stage 2?
At this stage, stage 2, probably no, in terms of the funding. So we were allocated a fund some years ago, and we have not sought more funding from council on the plans. So stage 2 would be probably a new putia for that. Is that what you're asking?
Carl, it's not about the funding. It's actually once the hapu management plans have been completed and been received by council and adopted or acknowledged, it's the next phase next. And wouldn't mind how helpful they have been within council, how council staff are using those. What more can hapu help council in regards to implementing and actualising those plans?
Kia ora, Irene. I think, lots of questions in there, but what I would say from a Takawanga point of view is they're great to have because they are our source of truth when we're guiding other projects and staff that are looking to interact with any particular hapu. So that's the first thing, so they're very useful. But they're useful when they're up to date and they're useful when hapu actually review them and are aware of them. So some of them have been done nearly 10 years ago and may or may not have been, the current hapu committees may or may not be aware what's in them as well. And then at our end, we've certainly been discussing the capacity of the Takawangi unit to be able to get around and drive that. So there's capacity issues at both ends. So for some hapu, they don't have people who can be available to review them or keep on top of them. And at our end, we've got a small team, so we struggle also to try and drive that to be as much assistance as we can from inside here. I think the other part to, or the other interesting aspect to what you raise is there's some hapu who have done their first plan quite a while ago and are ready to go on to phase 2. And the difficulty, the balancing act that we have is trying to say, well, we've got a pūtea for the phase 1s, but some of these hapu aren't ready to do their phase 1. And, it's trying to support hapu, whichever part of that journey they're on. So I think that's an interesting point to raise here in front of councillors so that as we're figuring out what we can put forward as suggestions for the way forward, there's a good understanding of that because being a little bit devil's advocate here, council might look at it and say, well, we've got all this pūtea set, all this funding set aside for phase 1. Why aren't all the phase 1s done? But it's important to understand that each of the hapu and the iwi are autonomous. So some of them might have done phase 1 and be ready to move on to phase 2. And we should think about whether or not we should be enabling that progress rather than allowing anybody to be held back by the stage that any other hapu might be at.
Kia ora kōrua. Thank you. That's the response I'm looking for, Mr. Chair. So we could advance when we're receiving the reports. What are the phases that are coming in? So we as the council in this committee understand what is coming next. Thank you.
Councillor Black.
Yeah, kia ora. 2 points. First of all, in the current update column, it says Tangata Whenua advised to check with the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, who may have a fund for reviews. So I don't know if that is happening or has happened. So that's the first point I make.
Yes, so the Regional Council has always had a fund, and that's available to any of the iwi hapu in our area to apply for. The Western Bay also has a fund as well, especially where boundaries overlap into the Western Bay corridors or areas. And of course we have a fund which we've already allocated to these 5 that are sitting here.
Thank you. Just the second part, you talk about capacity issues. I'm surprised that Ngāti Ranganui and Ngāi Tarangi, both of course are iwi, are struggling to get phase 1 completed. I'm just surprised by that.
Yeah, I can provide a bit of context to that. So Ngāi Tarangi, as an example, has a resource management unit, but no funding stream for that resource management unit. So it is a difficulty at iwi level is trying to get some way to have somebody who's the right type of person for that. Now, sometimes what they can do is lean back the other way to utilise a fund like this to try and get going, but it is a chicken and egg situation for them. Like, the funding that we do is really, it's not enough really if they want to really capture all of the collective aspirations and the collective plan of the iwi. So it's a little bit chicken and egg trying to figure out how they can do it. So yeah, the main thing is they would have somebody at their end if they had a funded model, but they often pinching from Paul to pay Peter, whichever way that goes. So they might look like a big entity that has the ability to do that, but they've got to try and prioritise whether, for example, in Ngāi Tarangi's case, they might be prioritising between some of the treaty issues that they've got reo and advancing te reo and education in iwi, and then a plan that comes forward to council.
I think the other thing is that the iwi, because like for Ranginui, for instance, 8 hapu, so we've got hapu reps here, so because there's often a clash between, oh, hey, that's our responsibility because that's in our rohe, our hapu. So the hapu, so I mean the iwis are, they have their own list of priorities as well, so they decide, well, okay, rather than get into an argument with you, we'll support you when you put whatever issue you're dealing with the council, we'll support it.
Yes, I think Waitangi is in a slightly different situation because they're not ready to do comprehensive iwi management plans, because at the moment, as part of the Waitangi Treaty Settlement, we refused to accept apology from the Crown because of the lands that was actually stolen. So we said we don't expect you to apologise to us because you're only remedying your own gripe. And as a consequence, we got a package that was taken the place of the apology and apology after. The package was the Crown offered us $3 million for a Hakaraya endowment. That's for the killing of Hakaraya. We got a $3 million education endowment, and we got a $500,000 to correct the history of Waitangi. So what we're doing now is we've hired, and this will probably be online at some point in time, we've hired somebody from TV, I won't mention who, to put all that together, the comprehensive, what's called, and that will be available. But that, all those historical counts, and we've got the historical count of practically all the rivers, creeks, springs, we've got them all, and it'll be a handy particularly for regional council, where we identified springs, and of course they use the language of aquafilters. But we've got all that, and it's a matter of transliterating that into an iwi management plan, and also taking into account that we have, that will be attached to it, an act of decree. The act of decree are those parts that we agreed to with the Crown in terms of the treaty settlement. All treaty settlements are legally acts of Parliament, acts of decree, signed off by Governor General. So all these transliterated explanations will be interrelated with our treaty claims. Whakairingo kōrero is actually a legal phrase that we've used. Overlay classifications is a legal phrase that we refuse, and that would be a part and parcel of a iwi management plan, and would also assist councils how to operate.
Kia ora, Murray, thank you for that. So we'll continue on, Mererina, haere tonu.
Okay, moving on to page 46 and 47.
Chair, if I may, the Moa Historic Reserve, do we have an update on that at all? I was aware there was a meeting which I attended part of a few days ago.
Kia ora. There's a very large annual report coming through to the next council meeting, I believe it is. Council meeting? Yeah. Moa Reserve, yeah. That's right. So there'll be a large report coming through with the whole outline of what's happened in the last year, including current issues.
Thank you.
I can give a partial update. Yesterday, so a couple of meetings ago, the Moa Trust asked for a further site visit to have a look at we're talking about the remediation track, and that site visit happened yesterday. Uncle Kihi was there, Kihi Ngātai was there on behalf of the Moa Trust, and several of the engineers and staff, including Mark Smith, were there. It was a good discussion, and at the end of it, Uncle Kihi indicated he was going back to the Moa trustees to recommend support for the base track down the bottom. So that's an update as of yesterday, and I understand councillors are going for a site visit on Monday as well.
Kia ora, Puri.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, Meredina. On the policy, council and recognition of Tangata Whenua Interests and Aspirations policy, which is basically the report in terms of the disposal of council lands, and we have put through the RFR proposal, etc. Now, I see here the dates. I'm a wee bit confused in terms of the update as of the June 2019. We, however, were awaiting a decision, and that was back in March, April, which would have been, or could have been, a final decision of council. Upon mutual agreement between Tangata Whenua and council, it was deferred. It was deferred either later this year or after the elections. Now that was the corridor that went down at that time. We do not have a formal deferment information on it, so I'm wondering what actually is that now, that formal or that position in terms of how it will be progressed in a formal manner.
I'll interpret that as, what is the date it's going back to council? So as you said, the agreement was to defer it until after the elections and into the next triennium. That would be a discussion, I would imagine, with the council as it sits after that election. But the intention that's been recorded is for that to be back on the table before the end of the calendar year. So I don't think I can give you an answer yet, because obviously both of those indicated timeframes are yet to arrive at us, but the intention is, as recorded, to have it back on the table before the end of this calendar year.
Kia ora, haere tūrena, Meredina.
Okay, we're on to 48, page 48.
Just through you, Mr. Chair. I think this is page 48, the Aspirin Reserve upgrade. I know it's on hold, but I don't know there's been any resolution to actually state that it will be in the 10-year plan 21-31. It's simply just sitting there, I think. So just to clarify, it's unless I've missed something, I don't know there's ever been. Huh? Yeah, well, it's not passed. It was knocked back by a resolution that cut the budget in half, and I think that is the last resolution that was formally passed at council. So that doesn't, I don't believe, lead to a formal statement that says it's going to be reconsidered in the 21-31. It's simply been unable to be delivered by the budget that was assigned to it, and that's where it sits. So it could be resurrected in the new triennium with an appropriate budget without having to wait for the 2021 LTP. It would be my understanding. I'm just clarifying it, that's all.
We've got nobody here that's sitting on the project delivery under review. Who's doing the review?
No, I can.
Then we'll carry on.
Yep. So I will follow up on that for you, Councillor Baldock, and just ask for that clarification, especially around budget. Yep. Cool.
I just ask the question it appears to me that this may be a costly exercise. Is there a priority listing in terms of how far back that this could be advanced in order to measure your budget a bit further down the line, as opposed to gun-ho Mirio that we have to do that immediately?
I think Meredina will sort all that out, find out. And thank you, Meredina.
Moving on to page 49. Oh,
sorry.
Kia ora tātou. I just wonder, at the risk of sort of breaking up the process, sorry, if we might go back to smart growth, and just I'm aware that with Buddy and Maru, I think you're the Tangata Whenua representatives there. Oh, sorry, Irene. I just wonder whether it would be good to have a little update as to where things sit from a Tangata Whenua point of view, which might be a good update from Tangata Whenua point of view to the councillors. And to cut to the chase, what I'm talking about is that obviously Shad's moved down from his position. How are you guys feeling about how useful smart growth is, or what help might be put into there as a from Tauranga City Council?
Are you asking?
I'm asking the smart growth reps from Tangata Whenua to provide an update.
Okay, kia ora.
Sorry, to you, Mr. Chair. Maybe it could be either Buddy, who was the co-chair of the combined forum, who was also on smart growth, and which would be a slight change of order, and Irene. One of those two could give that update. Kia ora.
Or we'll give the forum first. Irene, short and sweet, thank you.
In all due respect to where we are in the report, and Merilina's on that, and kia ora for bringing that up, maybe that could be after we've done the report, or is there something that you want to refer to? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Buddy, we'll give you the opportunity to speak, and if you want to make any comment.
Kia ora, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and committee members. I think those council members who are able to attend yesterday's Smart Growth Leaders Group we've got a good picture of where smart growth is, and as far as the Tangata Whenua perspective is concerned, we are concerned because we're not making too much progress, particularly in the fields of housing, Maori housing. Nothing's really coming out of the smart growth approach for us. And as with all the other members of the Tauranga community, we've got concerns about roading and transport and that kind of thing. I detected at yesterday's SLG meeting that there's a new momentum coming, and that it looks like Tauranga is going to have to look to its own resources and people to get some activity going in terms of the housing, in terms of the roading issues in particular. It looks like the government is backing off lots of things that we thought were going to happen, and we all know about what's happened with the TNL in particular, and that seems to be a particular point of focus for everybody, because not only does the TNL affect transport, but it also opens up an alternative area for the development of housing with Omokoroa in particular. I just can't understand why Omokoroa isn't proceeding, given that the infrastructure is already in place, and it seems to be a much easier option than pursuing Te Tumu, which has a number of issues associated with the development of that particular area, and similarly with Tauriko West and the NZTA and government pullback on State Highway 29, which makes that also a rather iffy proposition. So, if I had to generalise the Tangata Whenua position, we're probably not particularly happy right now. Not quite sure where we can go or what we can do to improve matters, but certainly withdrawing from something like smart growth is not an option. We have to stay in there and hang in there with everybody else and just see what we can do. I'm sure my colleague Irene will have something to add to that. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Buddy, thank you. Okay, no further comments, thank you. Kia ora. Oh, Maru, sorry.
I'd like to give an explanation of smart growth when it first started. It was based on two reports, Tauranga Tomorrow, some of those may remember that, and Fields for the Future. The Tauranga Tomorrow report was the Tauranga City. The Fields for the Future was Western Bay. And of course, obviously, Western Bay had a lot of resources, utilities, that was necessary for the population explosion and explosion that was going to happen, basically through the port. The port was getting popular. Fonterra was turning their trucks from Auckland to Tauranga, basically. And of course, it was going to, futuristically, it was going to be busy. So one of those reports that came out was the arterial road. The basis of that arterial was built on that the port of Tauranga was Rome, and all roads lead to Rome. So what they were thinking about was the entire regional development at that particular time on one hand, and on the other hand was managing growth in this area. So they had to create a sub-regional growth. Hence, you had the three parties that got together, Western Bay, Tauranga City Council, and the Regional Council to tie things together through the RPS. So they came together and it became to manage growth in a sub-region. They formed a sub-region, Western Bay Tauranga City Council, it's like an umbrella like that, and whereby you had the two councils and the regional council hoisting up the umbrella. And of course, you had these groups that come together and it eventually became smart growth. But the unassuming approach that went with that, with the managing growth, was smart growth. Now smart growth became, you have managing growth went to market-driven growth. And that's where we had all the headaches, because all these other infrastructure that was required to manage growth. But the hidden agenda was actually market-driven growth, and that's why we're in debt. Now, there's a meeting in what you call that requires a political lobby to get support back from the government to here. And you cannot do that without measuring what the Maori economy is. Because through these treaty claims and through some of the developments, it's massive. The Central North Island forest now belongs to the Maori. The mussel farms in Opotiki predominantly belongs to the Maori. And you've got all the kiwi fruit and all that's linked into it. It's in that Fields for the Future approach. So you had to have a gateway to that area, and you've got to put up a good story that provides the gateway to the economy. And that's what Shane Jones is doing. I challenged Shane Jones up front. I said to him, you were part of the Labour government that sold us off down the hook, and all those towns went bankrupt. You were part of that. And it says now you want a renaissance of that development. In other words, a rebirth of where those industries were that was created from the Depression right up to this time and day. So, what am I getting at? I'm getting at a point that we actually need to be included in the lobby to government in September and October, September to December, and talk much about the Maori economy, because that will ring the bell on a lot of ministers who are, I'm only well aware of what a lot of those ministers are thinking anyway.
Ka pai. Thank you, Barbara, for that enlightening history of our journey from where we first come together. You know, just a refresh of the mind that things have been happening. While they might have gone at our pace and what we want to come out, then we're still in the ring, boxing away. Been a little bit like Muhammad Ali, a little bit punch drunk, but that's okay. Okay, final on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Carlo. The questions that you raised, and trying just to give a quick overview in where that is and how effective that is for Tangata Whenua. In regards to the Smart Growth Tūpakari Advisor, which is Shad Rollston, has tendered a resignation. So that's one aspect where we're working at the moment. But before he leaves, he has worked with the combined Tangata Whenua Collective, which is the Western Bay Partnership, and also Tauranga City Collective, Tangata Whenua Collective. What we are seeing is actually low attendance at these forums. The review actually
is a suggestion that's come from the Tūpakiri advisor, is one of those roles that he would do before he exits, to also give a better approach and to align what's happening in smart growth at that partnership level. In regards to the partnership, we have a large partnership that sits there. We've got 4 representatives from Combined Tangata Whenua Collective, 4 from Western Bay and 4 from Tauranga City Council, and 4 from Regional Council. So part of that review will actually be fed back into smart growth. For that, in regards to our review, is how can we operate a lot more efficiently and effectively for the smart growth, but also for tangata whenua. Ki Tauranga Mona, Western Bay Ruhi. I think it's a good timing, but it's also a good timing in regards to that relationship, but also the mahi that's happening at smart growth level. I believe that the time that I've been in smart growth, I think it's a robust a forum and very projected thinking in where that is. I think it's a strategic positioning for tangata whenua to be a part of that forum as it projects futuristic and what's happening in that space. I do believe there probably is better ways that we can do that, but again, that's about, we've got a workshop that will come up, and that is to conduct the review. So just an overview, and just saying partnership, relationship is the most important thing I can put on the floor at this time, as opposed to the kōrero that happens in the room, always robust. So kia ora
Thank you,
tātou.
kia ora. Aritona Meredina.
Page 49. 50. 51.
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. Just in regards to the project in Maori Housing Development, Meririna, is thank you for those updates and what's happening in those areas. But of course, the Maori housing development is also a priority for tangata whenua, and also a report that'll be following is some of the work that's being done in this area, but also some of the mahi that we're doing as well with council. And that is around Māori development and papakainga and Māori land rates and development impact fees. That we're having those reports and discussion, and I just want to acknowledge the work that the Kaitaka Wainga unit has done as well, and just that it's not here. And it's been a big piece of our work that you've been working with us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Kia ora, Irene, thank you for that. Just a quick update on it too, councillors. You might recall that some time ago there was a discussion around the unique characteristics of Māori land, especially in relation to DIFs, to development impact fees. And an update is that earlier on this week, Kieran and I met with Jeremy Boaz to reignite that piece of work. So in some of the changes around, there's been different people that are in charge of those pieces of work now. And so we've reignited that and asked that team to come back to us with an update by the end of this week about what might come back to council in terms of recommendations in that front.
Kia ora, Larry. If I can ask a question, Carlo, at one point when it came up at one of the committees, I asked if we could get an analysis of other councils across the country and how they may rate. Is that going to be included in that, if we can?
Yep, I understand that was part of the work that got to a draft stage before a few seats shuffled around. So we've asked the current team just to review all of that information, see how far they've got with it. we've been doing a little bit of research ourselves and plugging it into that team. So we'll find out from that how much of it's made it on into the draft report. But we'll make sure that there's an eye on that as well.
Marina.
Okay. Page 52.
Sorry, just at the bottom of page 51, if I may, Mr. Chair, the Ara Rao Tangata, I'm not saying it right, hey? Ara Rao Tangata Conference. Is this what PO has been doing in the different marae? The one that was at Huria Marae, is that what it is?
Yes.
I heard such good feedback about it. I wondered if we would be able to schedule something like that with all of the councillors, because it seemed to be very, very informative locally for us to understand some things. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I think just to remind us, I think I'd given this update earlier on. It's a really interesting concept we're going through and working with Tangata Whenua on, and the idea from Takawanga point of view was to get an open Tangata Whenua focused conversation that we can draw out what might be valuable to our processes, rather than keep going to Tangata Whenua and saying chuck your mind into Tauranga urban strategy or chuck your mind into future development strategy, those sorts of things. So it's been really good. We've had 2 of them now. And it's increasing the level of comfort and the level of just testing out what that forum might feel like. Perhaps a way forward is that our future one, we can arrange to have some of the connection across that I think was requested last time around as well. And again, that might be a really valuable thing to have as part of an induction process as well. Because what it will do is the more that councillors can understand where Tangata Whenua are coming from, the easier it is when specific issues come up as well. So same thing with smart growth. Thank you for your update there, Irene. And it leant into what I was hoping would come forward, which was really that there's a review going on that Tangata Whenua are doing. And if I might suggest for the record that once that review is done and Tangata Whenua are comfortable, bring that review to this table so that this table can think about how Tauranga City Council combined between the councillors and Tangata Whenua can pick out the things that you can be a united voice on. So both of those things I think will end up intertwined.
Thanks, Carlo. Marina.
So we've noted that. Thanks, Councillor Baldock. 52. 53. 54. 55.
Just one question, Marina, and it be through the chair, perhaps to Marty. It's sort of sparked a reminder for me in regards to the transport. The modelling is underway. When would the possibility of something coming back to us, Marty, on that? Any idea at all? Or if not, could you find that out and report back?
Are you referring to the general modelling, the project?
Sorry, I should have mentioned beforehand, the Welcome Bay Hawiti had a planning study, and that was part of it. And as it says here, the transport modelling is underway, and I just wondered where have we got to, and the possibility of what could be happening in the future.
Sure, there was a very good presentation yesterday at Smart Growth about the modelling project, or the development of a traffic model, and it's expected that that'll be completed in July, we were told yesterday. I don't know that that presentation's actually been provided to our council, but given what we saw yesterday, I think it would be worthwhile, just because it's a significant project and it'll have wide and future benefits for the entire Western Bay. So
I'd support that Māori, and maybe the July 24 Ufted Committee would be a good place to park that if we could, for information.
Yeah, just raise the issue of transport, particularly in the Tutumu 14 block. Mind you, at the moment they got the gate locked, sort of thing. And the way to open that gate really is that they need to be part and parcel of that transport strategy. And I've had a yarn with Malcolm Short. The issue down there is two things. One is the development that they're going through, and the second thing is retention of Maori land. So you've got two feudalistic groupings. One is for this and the other one's for that. And I happen to be in the middle of the both of them. And I've taken no sides because I believe that there is a way, if they can get retention of Maori land through the Maori Land Court and still have the road and the development to go through. And part and parcel of that, and I think the Crown will come aboard on that, if they could start their planning now of that, like that roadway through the Tutumu block, and for them to start that planning now, and the lobby to government at the same time, because there's a lot of things to be lobbied in there. There's the ginseng, that's the riparian around the forests. That's a big industry that's coming on board. Scion is another big issue that's coming on board, and those are all linked to the port of Tauranga. And of course, having those industries up front will certainly have Shane Jones scrambling for coin.
Maori, thank you. Haere tonu Meridia.
Just in regards to projects for Auckland Bay in the old planning stage, just in I'm not sure what information has gone back to those hui, but I would imagine they'd have had some form of update, but certainly can follow up on that with Janine Speedy.
I'll just add a little bit in there that might help Maureen. So with this particular study, we've encouraged staff, and Janine in particular has been very supportive in going to find out the Māori land aspirations before any of the other modelling's been done. So it's quite interesting because it's kind of flipped around a different way. Māori Land Trusts, of course, have kind of gone, well, this is different. What are you fishing for, kind of thing. So it's been a little bit of a journey of just establishing some trust. So there was about 3 hui held at Waitangi Bay Community Hall earlier in the year. And then since then, different, mainly land trusts have contacted us at different times so that they could quietly talk about their aspirations, because they didn't feel that comfortable talking about what they may or may not want to do in a more public forum. So that's just reminding us that it's a little bit different. It's not like our plan's been taken to them and said, this is what we plan to do, what do you think? It's been more, what do you plan to do with your land and how could we accommodate that in a plan? So that's interesting in itself, but we can check on what that presentation was and whether that's been fed back and shared with some of those landowners in iwi and hapu as well.
Komutu.
Oh, sorry. I think you better come forward and be Hayden Henry. Can't see you at the back, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can I just ask a question? I've been back through all of the reports back to last year, and through none of the reports is a mention of tangata whenua support or interaction around the naming of Te Papa Ona Marapoara Takataka. So can we please get an update on where that's at? Because I understand the signage is being carved as we speak or designed as we speak, and there should be a blessing coming soon for the park. So can we have an update, please?
Just from a staff point of view and a process point of view, the mana whenua for that area is Ngai Tūkairangi and Ngāti Kuku. So the discussion's been directly with Ngai Tūkairangi and Ngāti Kuku. Unfortunately, Hayden's not here today, and there's not a Ngāti Kuku representative on here, but that's the process that it's been through. So the discussions have been directly with them, but I'll let the other members talk to anything further they'd like to add to that.
Kia ora for your kōrero in regards to naming rights. I think some of those priorities that we have for the mana whenua is one of those bullet points that are highlighted in our report, is naming. What we haven't really defined is the process. And currently, the naming rights is not coming through, but all due respect to the mana whenua, Tūkairangi, Ngāti Kuku, those that are in the processes, Ngai Tamarawaho, that are doing naming rights, there is not a process that it comes through the store at this stage.
Kia ora Puhiraki.
Kia ora for that. Thanks for the question, Leanne. And total what Irene has added, it is in our report, and perhaps there's a little bit more of an update on that can come through when I give the report. Kia ora.
Irene Walker, seconded by Mayor Brownlees. The Tauranga City Council report has been received. All in favour? Anybody against? Thank you. Mana whenua Tauranga Moana Partnership Update. Puhiraki, kei koe.
Kia ora, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, tēnā koe te tia mana me te mea, Greg, members of the council on this committee, and to our Mana Whenua Partnership representatives. And special greetings to Susan. I tautoko the mihi to you from our chair, from the Mana Whenua Partnership. Tēnā koe, tēnei te mihi aroha ki a koe. Welcome to this forum and to Tauranga Moana. So, in terms of the presentation of our report, apologies that it sort of takes a few parts to it. So I will attempt to coordinate it in a more simple form as we work our way through it. I will I'll first of all go through the formal report itself and then refer to the addendum. In terms of the report, which you all have a copy of in front of you, most of this is basically a summary of the year from July the 1st, 2018 until June the 30th of 2019. I don't need to go through each one in detail. We're all aware of what those are. You have all read it or are reading it now. But it is significant items that we have discussed, debated, and either completed or have progressed and are continuing into the next year. If you read through that, I just want to comment on the naming policy that came up. I believe that was heard just the other day in terms of through the policy committee, and the Mana Whenua Partnership look forward to seeing the official minutes of that report and what recommendations came out of it when that is available to us. I've just heard that there are some good things that for Tangata Whenua. However, we await the official recommendations that come through that. In terms of the other, we have worked through the FDS and the TUS. However, there are things that have come up in some of the plan changes that I guess is a continuation of those projects that have been carried through either with this council and have moved forward into smart growth. In terms of general, I will attempt to cover that more in the addendum and talk about that. Except to say, the last point, just as the council have your triennial elections, we also have a triennial member mandating process. What does that mean? It means that all our 17 members of the Mana Whenua Partnership will be subject to a review of mandating of each representative that will sit on the Mana Whenua Partnership over the next 3 years as well, the same as council. And that process will take place in November this year, to be completed in November this year, prior to Christmas. So that was that explanation. I'll go through the whole report and then take questions. So that's that. Now I'd like to, now move to the addendum, which I've just put in recently. So my apologies for not having it in the first report, and was appreciative that it was able to be tabled today. First of all, back in May, the partnership made submissions to the annual plan, TCC annual plan. Now I know that all you councillors were part of that council that heard those submissions. I have attached, or there is attached, a copy of the submissions that were made to you. I don't intend to go through them again because you've already heard them, other than to say that it was, those submissions were carried out at that particular time, and it was heard by the full council, and we engaged with discussions during the annual plan submissions. However, I feel that it's also important to bring it through this committee, the Tangata Whenua Committee, because it will add weight to the way in which, into the process that we tend to those matters that were raised within our submission to the annual plan, moving forward into the next year. You can read the report anyway without going through it. The other items on this report which complete the addendum is our own work program for the rest of this calendar year. Firstly, the elections. You'll read in that section of the things that we feel important that our people should know in terms of the elections. We greatly would like to see some of our people putting their names forward in terms of the elections for the City Council. I believe there may be one or two that have already, that are intending to do so, and it's not my job to announce that, but for themselves to come forward and make that known when the time is appropriate. However, in order to facilitate that, and I believe there's still a few months left before, 2 months maybe, before that is completed in terms of registrations, of putting your name forward, that we will attempt to carry out those points that are listed in that section about education on what local government's about, how the election process works, etc., etc. And we hope that appropriate people will come forward and offer their names within that part of this report. Secondly, the plan changes. We have been working all year with those ones that have been named there, and they came through with Meridina's report anyway. I just wanted to add the plan change 28, which is the one about the city living within the CBD, and so those 4 plans are the ones that we're currently engaged with council staff, and will continue until their fruition or completion, which I believe some of them will occur in early next year, in that sense. The biggie is the one that Irene touched on earlier in her comments to the Takawainga report, was the Maori Housing. Now, this is something that we put forward every year. We put it forward in terms of submission to the annual plan, submissions to the long-term plan, which we did last year, and we will continue to do that because this is a very, very important part of who we are and what we stand for in terms of moving forward for Tangata Whenua. Tangata Whenua have always been disadvantaged over many, many years in terms of developing housing on their own Māori land. And there are many reasons. Not all reasons are caused by local body, the local government. However, it is the way in which the City Council operates within their own policies that at times make it difficult for Māori to actually end up being able to build homes on their own land. And these are just some of the comments within this report relating to the things we'd like to look at. Development contribution fees, which was mentioned earlier by Irene. And I also like to say that at the end of this report, I'd like to open up to any of our Mana Whenua partnership members to add to my report. The infrastructure and service costs. Now, a good example of that is Marapehi. We had a pipeline that came through from this side of the city, across the harbour, through Marapehi, out to Tauranga. The sewerage plants, etc. out there. And the people of Marapehi had to literally fight tooth and nail to get certain concessions. At the beginning, I think I'm correct in saying 10 years ago, when it was first mooted and first started, there was no one that could hook into the system in Marapehi. To today, we now have the 2 marae community zones, including the maraes, and the Kuta, the school, Marapehi School, which has right now hooked into the system. So, it's something that has moved forward, but not without the absolute determination of the people of Marapehi over that 10-year period to get that to happen. So I absolutely applaud the people of Marapehi and the support we got from all our hapu and Tauranga moana to enable that to happen. We also have our own definition of what papakainga is, and we've been constantly saying to council what papakainga is. Papakainga is not just putting up a house or two on a piece of land. It's developing a village concept. It's having the housing, it's having the other support services, whether it's a community type of centre or a health centre or whatever. We'd like to further develop that concept, as well as having the right way of being able to put multiple buildings on our own land, which is not necessarily the same as non-Māori on general land in the rest of the city, where you pepper pot the whole landscape with houses built on anything from a 350 square metre section up to something bigger. It is the way that we want to develop our land in terms of a papakainga on that concept. The resource consents policy came up. To be honest, we're getting a wee bit frustrated, maybe that's an understatement, in waiting for this new policy to be developed. It has been going on now for, I think, four years, maybe 5, between the 3 councils of getting a common policy to all the 3 councils. I remind you that TCC has a policy that we helped develop some 12 years ago, I think, around about that time. And, you know, we were told that this could form the basis as a template for the new policy going forward, but it hasn't happened. So please, let's get further and get that policy reviewed and re-put into action. Finally, the new elected members induction. Yeah, this could be a great opportunity with the results from the elections. Whatever the mix is in the new council moving into the next triennium, and we would like to greatly assist in inducting that new group of people, whether they're current
Kia ora,
or
Puhi,
new ones,
just want to interrupt you
carry
for a
forward.
moment.
Sorry?
Just want to interrupt you for a moment. We've got a TV crew out there would like to film what we do, but they're here mainly for the naming policy kōrero.
Yes.
So I'm okay, but as long as everybody else is. So while we've still got a little bit of business to do, they can film that happening.
Okay.
Are we having naming policy, kōrero?
No,
Are
we're not
we?
having any problems. We're not having problems, it's just...
Under general, maybe. Okay. No, I understand, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that piece of information. And so I just wanted to finish my report presentation and to also reinforce the treaty that was brought up earlier by Councillor Molloy as could be added to that induction program, or induction process rather, for when we do it at the end of this year. So I'd now like to take questions and ask first of all, ask my colleagues if they'd like to add anything, and then collectively we could take questions. Kia ora tātou.
Filming this last bit. Everybody comfortable with that? You're out, okay. Any questions? Any questions of the chairman of the Whenua Tauranga Moana Partnership?
Through the chair, if I may, to our CEO Marty, we around the election we do a fair amount of work, I believe, with our communications unit, trying to let the community know what the facts are, how to vote, etc., and the fact there is an election on, and so we spend a certain amount of money on it, I believe, and you know, whether we can assist in some way with the Tangata Whenua and assisting there to get more voting from the Tangata Whenua, whether, as I said, whether we can assist in some way.
Through the chair, I'm sure we could. I think there's obviously a national campaign that occurs. Our local communication team also undertakes some publicity. It's something that I think I can work with Carlo and the team with, and the various hapu, perhaps to promote a higher participation in the forthcoming local body elections. It's something that I think we should encourage.
Just a further update on that is that at a previous Mana Whenua partnership meeting, there was some discussion about what sorts of support might be able to be facilitated through that group, and I did table that to the election working group that involves Jacinda and co. So they're definitely aware that there's an opportunity to team up to try and increase participation.
I've sort of been political lobbying for years, going back to the MMP and all that sort of thing. But I find that the biggest issue is registering voters. The last election, I lined up 28 people to vote a certain way. And
That's powerful.
and what happened was only half of them was able to have their vote ticked because the other half weren't registered. They were fully supportive. I spun a good yarn, and of course they were supportive of the thing, but they didn't get. They voted for nobody.
That's your in case you incriminate yourself further. Thank you. Any further questions?
If I might just put a few updates in, the addendum's excellent. The addendum's very helpful. But just with regard to some of the topics raised, the naming policy, great to see that came up the other day, so that's advancing well. Te Aronga design principles, we've had a couple of good workshops with Mana Whenua partnership, so for councillors' information, and figuring out a way forward on that. So we've got a plan that is garnering more informed support for that, and staff are quite excited about the prospect of having Te Aronga design principles as a framework to be able to guide some of their projects and work, but they await that direction from Mana Whenua partnership. With regard to rating and valuation methodologies, the Takawanga team has met with our rating team in particular, and I'm just thinking, seeing this, it might be worth us organising for the rating team to come and present to the Mana Whenua partnership. But just so you know that your submissions are being heard, there was discussion there about how active council is around the way that the Rating Act is applied, and the team there is very sympathetic to working out the best solutions for that are within those parameters. But I think they can probably come and do a presentation to the Mana Whenua partnership on that.
Yep,
that's it.
No further questions, so we'll call for a mover and a seconder. Fukiraka, Ihaka, and Councillor Calvin Clout moved and seconded at the presented Mana Whenua o Tauranga Moana partnership update has been tabled, read, debated, and endorsed. All in favour? Anybody against? Thank you. So our next meeting is going to be an informal one, I believe, so that's going to be left up to the Takawanga to work out. We need some marae or somebody to put their hand up to host this. DIY, nice flash marae over Matapi there somewhere, so that might be a good place to go to. So with that, I declare the meeting closed and ask you to close it to the karakia puhiraki. You give him manaki tia te kai as well.
Kia ora mai tātou. Nō reira mō te mutu mō tēnei hui o te rā inoi tātou. Let us pray. He tō mātou matunui tarangi ki a tapu tōingo. E pā e whakawhena ana mātou ki a koe. Mō tō manakitanga ki a mātou kuhui mai i tēnei rā i runga te kaupapa. Mō ngā whitiwhiti kōrero waikanui a tātou mō ngā tākai o te kaupapa nei. Kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tō tātou ariki ahu karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake, āmene. Kia ora tātou, ana whakapai nei ka i homai nei e koe, hei ranga mō mātou tinana, āmene.
Kia ora, just before everyone leaves,